Good morning and good evening, and also wherever you are. And this is actually the sixth annual section of the China Global Think Tank, Innovation Think Tank. So welcome to all of you. And I'm Wang Huiyao, founder and president of the Center for China and Globalization. Thank you for tuning in this special opening dialogue of our sixth annual China Global Think Tank Innovation Forum 2021, live from CCG head office here in Beijing. We're in our conference room. Today, we are very honored, actually very pleased to have an old friend, also Dr. John Hamre. He's the president of one of the most prominent think tanks in the US, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, we're short named the CSIS. So he's taking out his time in the evening here with us. So we're going to explore the topics that are centered about think tanks, about American foreign policy, about pandemic changes, about think tank innovation, which is our conference today, but also about area we can collaborate. I would like to briefly introduce Dr. John Hamre. He's the president and CEO and a Langone chair in American leadership at CSIS. Before joining CSI, he served as the 26th U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense and held senior positions in the U.S. Senate Armed Service Committee and the Congressional Budget Office. He has numerous involvement in his previous career. And he received his PhD with distinction from CSIS of the Johns Hopkins University in 1978. So welcome, John, and it's great to see you again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wang, and congratulations to you and the Center for China and Globalization. My goodness, what a wonderful job you've done in building this institution. It's very impressive.
Thank you. Actually, we are today, we are having this sixth annual Global Think Tank Innovation Summit. So we have very privileged to invite you as the opening speaker, and we're going to have followed by a next panel. We're going to have 5 think tanks from US and China to talk about further. But for this one, we are actually entering a very interesting time, and as during our this start of the discussion, we know that the world has changed fundamentally. We are facing pandemic, and we're having a lot of challenges, and the world is really at a crossroad. And so, given your experience in leading the think tank of one of the leading think tank in the world. So we would like to open with you on the think tank topic. As we know, CSIS is a think tank that was founded in 1962, which is almost 60 years ago, and you've been at home. You've been running that think tank for 20 years. Make that into when you come to that think tank, the think tank still have a deficit. Now you make that into one of the most influential think tank in the world. So what's your experience in you share with us how you have built up this think tank, and what is your experience and what is the your recommendation for our think tank community, because we are having a think tank conference today.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Wang, I made so many mistakes when I came to CSIS, and you're right. We were in very deep trouble when I first came to CSIS, but we were able to get out of it. I think in one sense, our poverty was helpful because we were so poor back then. We had to raise 97% of our budget every year. So I had to listen carefully to what the market wanted. I didn't have the luxury of just doing my own thing. We had to listen to what were the problems people were experiencing and how could we make a contribution. And then the key to success is the quality of your staff. I inherited a staff that wasn't very strong, to be honest, and the entire journey of my 21 years has been to hire really good people. And so that's, hire good people, give them a lot of flexibility, and establish the culture so that people feel that they have to do honest and objective work.
That's really great. Yeah, I mean, talent is always important. So I'd like to actually, come to the recent CSIS released a report. It's called "Advancing U.S.-China Healthy Security Cooperation in an Area of a Strategic Competition," which revolved around the area of U.S.-China can work together. For example, on the health, including vaccine, travel, public health infrastructure, biosafety, supply chain, and countering disinformation. And so, as you know, that think tank these days, can play a very active role in terms of making those recommendations. So, what do you think now? We are facing this once in a century, probably, catastrophe of this pandemic. Where did you see where we can get out of that, and how we can really work together? I mean, internationally at multilateral level, and of course also China, U.S. as two largest leading country in the economy in the world. How we can work together and things like that.
Yeah, this is a very large and important question. There's a central paradox that we've experienced these last 2 years. It's very clear with something like a pandemic that no one country can act on its own and protect itself. I mean, there has to be international cooperation to deal with something like a global pandemic. But people that lead countries naturally respond to the pressure within their own country. And so there's a parochialism that becomes very strong in a period like this. Every country in the world basically tried to find solutions for themselves to deal with the pandemic. And it highlighted that international health organizations are not strong organizations. So I do think there is some very fundamental thinking that we need to do, because China isn't going to give up its capacity to decide its own path for health, public health. We're going to hold on to that ourselves. But we do have to find ways where we can cooperate. I think the bright spot over the last 2 years was with the medical research community, where there were international networks that communicated with each other and joined together in a shared effort. In the private sector, international cooperation was very impressive. In the public sector, governments, the cooperation wasn't so good, but in the private sector, it was very good. And so I think it's a bit of an idea about what we could do in a broader sense so we could work together. How do we help our respective civil societies to work more closely on medical preparedness? I think that's a real opportunity. Now, specifically on China, look, I'm unhappy about the direction we're in right now. There's a lot of tension between our two countries. We have to find ways where we can work on shared problems. And certainly public health, global public health is a shared problem. So I think there's an opportunity here.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Actually, I know that both U.S. and China are really favor that patent waiving, for developing countries in terms of producing the vaccine, and hopefully at the coming up at WTO ministerial meetings, WTO, U.S. and China can reach something on these new efforts in terms of supporting developing countries and getting vaccine. So unless everyone is safe, we're finally safe. We got to make a lot of lead on that. You're right. China and the U.S. can work many ways and on that. And you also mentioned about U.S.-China cooperation, and also you're not satisfied with the current situation. That you think there's ways to collaborate, and so we're glad to see that China and the U.S. has actually made a joint statement that COP26 on climate change. So that is another big area. We can collaborate, and pandemic could come again, or even we are in. So what do you think about the climate change and the things that we can also work together in terms of the common background?
Well, I do think it is an area that we can work together. I'm impressed by a lot of the forward-looking policies that China has. For example, on electric vehicles. I mean, it's impressive what China is proposing to do for itself. Obviously, you are a country in transition, energy transition. We are too. But you're in a country with energy transition. And so I think there are opportunities that we could explore. Where can we collaborate on climate change? We do have to find a number of things where we can at least have conversations with each other, look at potentially joint projects, just like in the healthcare area. I mean, there was actually a fairly robust collaboration between our medical scientists, for many years, which was a good thing because it became the foundation point for the cooperation that did exist for the pandemic. So we should look for these opportunities, Dr. Wang.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. John Hamre. So what I think that really make the two countries interesting now is that the world has a lot of common demand, actually. For example, the infrastructure. We see that worldwide there is a huge demand for infrastructure, developing countries, but also developed countries. I noticed that European leader just announced last week they're going to come up with 350 billion euro on putting the Euro Gateway, EU Gateway project for infrastructure. President Biden mentioned about past his 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, and on the same day he talked to President Xi after he signed that bill. And of course, China has this Belt and Road Initiative, which has been carrying on for the last 8 years. So infrastructure-wise, I mean, we had the World Bank, we had the BRICS New Development Bank, we had the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. On this, and also G7 proposed the Build Back Better, B3W by President Biden. So do you think that we can really, work together on those infrastructure where I think we have the biggest denominator, biggest draw of the future benefits for everyone? And that's where probably can sustain us for the next half a century of prosperity and success and growth potential. So what do you think about that? All those areas that we could work on infrastructure.
Yeah, there's an astounding demand around the world for infrastructure building. In some places for brand new infrastructure, in some places like in the United States for modernizing our infrastructure. It's I'll be honest, it's rather embarrassing to look at the state of a lot of America's bridges and roads. Our airports are not, they're disappointing. So there's a lot that we should do. But globally, infrastructure is a major issue. And I think what we should probably do is start by looking at what are the areas where we know that there is a trend we're all going to want to deal with, such as how do we build sustainable infrastructure that has a revenue base underneath it, so it doesn't become a white elephant. It doesn't become a very giant project that can't support itself financially. So I think there's some financial things. I think we need to find ways to help third world countries to do a better job of managing complex tender offerings. This is a complicated thing. Infrastructure projects are big and elaborate and complex. Helping other countries do a better job of deciding what's in their interest, what is sustainable. Those, I think, would be things we could work on together.